This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another NHL team season preview video here, the Ice Guys Patreon page. 32 teams in 32 days. Every single day an NHL team preview to get you ready for the upcoming season. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith. Hey, what do we got here? We got a full house. We got the brothers Robinson in the house to talk Dallas Stars, their beloved team. It's Matt Robinson. It's Ryan Robinson. We got both of them here to talk about the Dallas Stars, a team that for the last few years, they've been a legit Stanley Cup contender, and once again this year enter the season as a legit Stanley Cup contender. First and foremost, Matt, Ryan, we'll start with you, Matt. Good to see you again. Ready to talk some Dallas Stars, and I'm sure optimistic about the season ahead.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Excited to discuss, obviously, my favorite team and the team that really got me into hockey, to be honest with you. So, yeah, another optimistic season. I feel like, the last few years, really since the bubble run, they've always, at least been in that mix of teams that can make a run in the playoffs. But, I think going into this year, they have to be, in those few teams that you really see with a legitimate shot. There's always, some dark horses, some underdog teams, some teams that come out and play better than expected. But I think, any NHL analyst, any expert would say they're right there. Pending how they play, injuries, all that sort of fun stuff. So definitely excited to get into it.
No doubt, back-to-back conference finals appearances, albeit in defeat, and looking to take that last step. Ryan, Dallas, I'm sure looking forward as well to the season ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Even more excited for this season than I was maybe last year, just because last year it was, okay, they got to the Western Conference Finals and lost to Vegas. Are they that good, or was it a fluke? And they showed that, they are that good and they should be considered a top 5 contender. So I'm excited to see how they start off this year and as they try and fight their way back. But I think they have a lot of good things going for them. I'm excited to see a lot of the young talent they have. So I think it's going to be a really good season. And, excited to talk about them today.
And talk about them we will right now. Dallas, of course, 113 points last season. Great regular season, obviously in the postseason. Made the run to the Western Conference Final, and it was looking great early on. And I like the fact that they showed that they could fight through some adversity. That Vegas series didn't, and they ran through the gauntlet too. Let's not forget Vegas in the first round, down 0-2 early in that series, found a way to get through it and advance. Colorado, not the easiest opponent in the second round, win that series. And of course, they end up falling to the Edmonton Oilers, who ended up, of course, getting to the Stanley Cup final before losing themselves to the Florida Panthers. Still, though, a team that was right there in the end, and a team that on paper, they look like they should be right there again. When you look at them up front, that's where you have to start, because it just jumps off the page at you at the depth that this team has in the forward group. It's incredible. When you think of Jason Robertson and Roope Hintz, Wyatt Johnston, could you imagine a second year of Wyatt Johnston now this year, and what he's going to be capable of after just a phenomenal first full season in the NHL last year? Mason Marchment, Matty Duchene, who was brought back by the Dallas Stars in the offseason, Tyler Seguin. And look what you've got this year in the bottom 6, where with some teams it's a drop-off. We talked about this with Colorado a little bit. What are we going to get from them in the bottom 6? How good are they going to be in the bottom 6? There's some unknown there. Not so much with the Dallas Stars when you look at the bottom 6. When you've got, the likes of Ben, you're going to see a full season of Logan Stankoven, and he just gave you a little glimpse, just a little taste last year of what he's capable of for the Dallas Stars last season. Maverick Bourque, I expect him to make the team, be on the team from opening night for the Dallas Stars. And I remember watching that kid in junior and saw right away, hey, this is one hell of a potential here in the NHL, and whoever drafts him is going to be better off for it. And Jimmy Nill and Dallas were able to. And then even on the fourth line, the projected roster and projected depth chart looks like Evgeny Dodonov, Sam Steele, and Colin Blackwell on your fourth line. I mean, that's a very capable fourth line to chip in a little bit here and there offensively, to be very solid, to be good in their own zone a little bit too, especially Steele. I mean, that's a very, very solid fourth line. Bottom line is tons of depth up front with the forward group for Dallas. The blue line, obviously, we talk about the big guns, right? Thomas Harley, outstanding. Miro Heiskanen, one of the most complete, well-rounded, all-around defensemen in the NHL, without a doubt. And all the minutes he logs and all the situations he plays in, 5-on-5 power play, penalty kill. And what Miro Heiskanen means to this team is you can't even, it's not enough words in the English dictionary to explain the importance of him on this hockey team. Thomas Harley's great season. Esa Lindell is a great third defenseman. Now, this year after that, of course, they say they don't say goodbye to Chris Tanev. Chris Tanev said goodbye to them because he wanted to go home to Toronto and sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that was a loss because Tanev comes in for Dallas last year, and you saw the difference. Just a tower of power, pillar of strength on the blue line, shot blocking machine. He just eats pucks, suppresses shots at just one of the best levels of any defenseman in the NHL. And we saw the impact he made on Dallas's blue line. So they lose a guy that was an instant impact and a positive for Dallas when they made their run last year. But even though they knew they were going to lose Tanev, once they realized that, they kind of said, you know what, we're going to probably not be as, in certain parts, not be as good, and losing Tanev hurts the blue line, but we're going to make up for it and try to have more depth. They need to go maybe 1 through 7 or 8 deep on the blue line, Dallas, to make up for it. And they really did a nice job of that. Matt Dumba does have to have a bounce back year. Didn't love his season last year, but he's capable of it now with a winning organization. Brendan Smith, a good veteran stay-at-home defenseman, sandpaper in his game. You got to like that. Has some of those Tanev elements. Same thing with Ilya Lyubushkin, who comes in and is going to be on that third pair for the Dallas Stars. And all of a sudden, you're looking at that as your 6, Harley, Heiskanen, Lindell, Dumba, Smith, Lyubushkin. And that's not even talking about Nils Lundqvist, who's played a ton of games in the NHL level. Alex Petrovic, who played in playoff games for the Dallas Stars last year on the blue line. Leon Bichelle and Christian and others. I mean, they go about 7 or 8 or 9 deep on the blue line now, the Dallas Stars. So that if someone does get hurt, okay, you lose you don't have a Tanev now, but my goodness, you got 1 through 8 and 9. If someone gets hurt, the 7th and the 8th guy can tread water at least, if not still play well for the Dallas Stars on that blue line. And of course, in net, you're set with Jake Ottinger. Now, if you want to be nitpicky about Jake Ottinger, the Edmonton series, he had his ups and downs. 2 years ago in the conference finals, it wasn't the best for him. So the conference finals have been a bit of a bugaboo for Jake, but that's being nitpicky. He's still one of the best goalies in the NHL, one of the elite goalies. And like I said, you lose as a team, you win as a team. Wasn't all on Jake Ottinger last year in the Edmonton loss, or the year before in the Vegas conference finals loss. But like I say, just take at the final piece of the puzzle with Jake Ottinger, just to put his stamp on where he is as an elite goalie. Conference finals elevate even more. That's what we're looking at for Jake moving forward. But it goes without saying, we think the world of him. Alex and I always have thought, utmost respect for Jake Ottinger as a goaltender. And I know Dallas happy to have him, and I'm sure Maddie and Ryan are very happy to have him as their goaltender as well. So lots to like there. Yeah, they don't have the wedge wall anymore, Scott Wedgwood, but it's like it's basically interchanging a solid backup goalie for another solid back. Casey DeSmith's capable, right? He can do the job. It's a solid enough backup option. And Ottinger's still going to get the lion's share of the games anyway, so you're only going to see Casey for a little bit, but he's capable of going in there and playing well on occasion. So not a big deal that Wedgwood's no longer the backup and Casey DeSmith is. Look, it's all about cup or bust again for Dallas, just like last year. You could even say 2 years ago. You look at their point total, it's currently 103.5 right now. I'd honestly lean over. And you've got room for margin for error here, I should say. 113 points last year. Dallas is going to have to be 10 points worse than that. At least 10 points worse than that to go under 103.5 points. I'm not ready to say they will. Now, is there going to be that emphasis on we're going to run our team ragged through the regular season now after 2 conference finals appearances? Maybe they do pace themselves a little bit. Maybe that's your one concern about going over 103.5. But where the number is right now with the point total for Dallas, 103.5, it's an over or pass bet for me when it comes to Dallas's point total. Alex, we'll start with you. Dallas Stars.
Well, and we talked about it in the Colorado episode where, I believe it's a 2-horse race in the Central Division. I believe it's Dallas and it's Nashville. And so when you're looking at that as far as point totals and divisional odds, you can make a play on those now. Or you can wait a little bit later as well, because I do think that this Dallas team, they're going to have some battles ahead of it. At this point, no one's shocked by Dallas. Dallas will get everybody's A game any given night, even if they're playing, the low-level teams like a San Jose or an Ottawa, Montreal. They're going to get the best of the best from everybody they play. So there's going to be some nights that are going to be a little tough, but this is a team that's built to weather the storm. Like I said, they have a lot of depth. Okay, you couldn't get Chris Tanev back, but if you to put, like you said, Dumba and Brendan Smith and Labushkin in a blender, and you blended those three guys into one player, it comes out to be Chris Tanev. So now you've saved money, and you've actually got a couple of younger pieces, and you have more depth overall and balance on that blue line, which is a good thing. You have tons of depth up front. You have one of the best top six groups in the league, and then you add a young kid like a Maverick Bork, who, like you said, takes some time to gel, work on and play on that bottom six line, but play his way up toward that top six at some point. The ceiling is unlimited for this offense with Dallas, and I think that could be the thing that carries them most nights. They could blow teams out 5-2, 6-2, and that's what I think would be the reason to look at them over those points at 103. I think they're going to be a team that more nights than not they just lay waste to some teams, and they don't need to rely on Odger to give you 35, 40 saves. That'd be huge. If Odger can have some sleepy 18, 20 save nights and get a win and not have to do much, all the better when it starts coming down to April and May when you really need him to step up and deliver. Now, he's there for now, but you wonder about, can they get this contract decision done? What's he asking for? What does Dallas want? That's something I would kind of keep in mind. It's no coincidence that Casey DeSmith was signed for 3 years. Okay, that was an emergency plan in case of things don't happen well with this contract negotiations with Odger being an RFA at the end of the year. So we'll see. And like you said, you can nitpick and say that he had a couple bad conference finals, but okay, this team, in my eyes, this conference finals are bust. You can't afford to not get back to at least the Western Conference Final if you're the Dallas Stars. So if something happens where he's the issue in round 1 or round 2 and they don't get back to that level, or he ends up being the issue to keep them from winning the West, now you got a really big question you got to ask yourself: do you keep him around, or do you try to replace who is arguably a top 10 goaltender in the league, but may not be the guy who can get you over the hump? So, yeah, for Dallas, it's win the West or bust, in my opinion. That's a lot of pressure to put on them, but it's deserving because they're a great hockey team. And I think they're going to have a fairly easy run during the regular season, and they just have to get themselves mentally prepared and physically prepared and stay physically safe and sound for the postseason.
You talk about, and I talked about it, of course, Wyatt Johnston, incredible, right? Just blew everyone away last year with his play in his first year there. At Logan Stankoven, too, when he got called up during the season, and look at the instant impact. And like I say about Maverick Bork, he's got the potential to be the next Johnston, the next Stankoven, the next right away immediate impact for this team. 77 points in 71 games in the regular season with Texas Stars last year in the AHL, 11 points in 7 playoff games with them as well. And like I say, brilliant chance to make the team be an impact right away. That's something to look for. Obviously, when I failed to mention Dallas's stats last year, but elite in a lot of areas, obviously. 3rd in the NHL in goals per game. Only Colorado and Toronto scored more goals per game last year than Dallas. 3rd in the NHL as far as goals scored per game. Defensively, not nearly as good as they were offensively, believe it or not, last year. Offense actually kind of took a huge step forward for them last year. And the defense was still very good, but not nearly as good as it was 2 years ago, but still very good, obviously. Top 10 in goals against per game. The power play was absolutely phenomenal for Dallas last year, 6th in the NHL. And keep in mind, they were only behind teams like Tampa, Carolina, Rangers, Oilers, Avs. You're talking about teams with really good power plays. Dallas was right there with them as far as the power play was concerned last year. And the penalty kill was still very good as well. Top 10, 8th in the league as far as penalty kill last year. So what you'd expect from a team contending for the Stanley Cup. This year, I think offensively as well, they're going to be just hard to deal with, hard to stop, hard to defend for any team. They'll be scoring goals. They'll be north of 3 goals per game again this year easily. They might even be one of those 3.5 to 4 goals per game type of teams this year. Defensively, no Tanev, but again, they compensated with a stay at home, steady, physical shutdown defenseman, and you've got Ottinger back there. So still should be a top 10 defensive team and one of the more complete teams in the NHL. Yep.
Team total overs. That's going to be the name of the story most of the year with the Dallas Stars. Team total overs.
Dallas is going to have nights where they give up only 1 or 2 goals, but they're also going to have some of those nights where maybe they're off their game or they're sleepwalking like they did against Montreal in home games and certain things like that last year, and they do give up, 4 or 5. So team totals take it out because, Dallas will be good on their end to score, 4 or 5 goals on a lot of occasions this year, without a doubt. All right, the brothers Robinson are here to help us with the Dallas Stars, and Matt, we'll go to you. on the Dallas Stars. Your outlook for the upcoming 2024-2025 season.
Yeah, so obviously, as we talked about early in the show, optimistic. As Alex mentioned, their ceiling's high. They've got all the potential in the world, but until they really bring home a cup, Western Conference Finals are great. Extensions to the seasons. They've had good playoff runs. They've had some great playoff wins, but I know ultimately that end goal is to win a cup, and I have no doubts that that's really what's on the mind of guys like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Duchesne, re-signed for a reason. I think overall, offensively, I think you're going to see a similar team. Obviously, with a bit of change, Wyatt Johnston maybe playing on that top line instead of Pavelski to start the year. I think that's only going to help improve guys like Rupe Hintz. Wyatt, Joe Pavelski is a legend. Some folks have him as a Hall of Famer, some don't. Did he get his cup? But it's obvious that he slowed down a bit. Especially in the playoffs last year. He is an older guy. I think a guy like Wyatt will just create more chances. He'll be able to battle in the corners. He's so tenacious at getting pucks in the offensive zone. There's so many highlight real goals of him. Pickpocketing Cale Makar and other high-end defensemen that, don't typically turn the puck over. And a guy that, is under 21 last year is able to do it against some of the best in the league. So I think that's going to elevate that line. I think Rupe Hintz is going to have a big season. But overall, I think offensively, they were, as you mentioned, top 3 in the league last year. I think that continues, top 3 to 5. They're obviously going to be an offensive firepower. Defensively, you mentioned the ins and outs. Obviously, it would have been great to have Tanev back. But I do think, given for how long he wanted, he obviously had some push to stay up in Canada. He's obviously Canadian. That was probably top of mind as well. I think the term, I wouldn't have loved to see Dallas sign him for that long. I think he's got a couple more really great seasons in him. And then I think because of how physical he plays and how he blocks shots, I think you will see a decline in the end of that contract. You obviously mentioned some depth. I think, Harley, Lindell, Heiskanen, obviously 3 names that Dallas Stars fans know and are very happy to see back in the lineup. I think Dumba is going to have a turnaround year because I really think this will be one of the first times in his career. He's not really looked at to be a guy that's taking over the game defensively. If he ends up playing with a Miro for some of the game, he's not going to have a big responsibility. Miro's such a, takes care of the D zone. He's good offensively, but he's not like overcommitting very often. So it'll allow Dumba to play a little more free. And I think, you'll see a lot of change in his game, when he's got that comfort level, when he can, try and make a play, because he does have skill. He has some offensive pull, but when he's relied on as D1 or D2 or shutting down the other team's best forwards as the guy, that takes away from that type of game. And I think he'll be huge in the playoffs. We obviously saw what he did to Pavelski as a Minnesota Wild player. That's the kind of edge that Dallas hasn't really had in these last few playoff runs is, somebody big and physical. So I think that's, like in that Dallas Edmonton series, if you've got a guy like that lay a big hit on a McDavid early in the series, not even to injure him, but just a big hit to kind of set the tone, I think, that does wonders. So I look for him to, have a really good season with Dallas. I think taking a little pressure off, maybe similar to like when Duchesne got to Dallas. He was always relied on as a high point guy, a lot of pressure, and then he got to Dallas, and while that line played like a top line for parts of last year, he wasn't the go-to guy. He wasn't the guy with the spotlight on him all the time. And, obviously he played really well for Dallas last year. So hoping Dumba does the same. And then, like you both mentioned, now they've got some depth on D. There's like 4 guys that I think will be fighting for those last 2 spots. And competition breeds, the best in folks. I think, Lyubushkin's a guy that can bring some physical edge. So would love to see him get some good reps in. And then he could be a guy big in the playoffs. And then you've got Lundqvist, you've got Brendan Smith, and then I'm drawing a blank on that eighth guy. That's Bischel. Like, obviously, there's a lot of folks that are high on him and saying he could be as high as a top 4D for Dallas. So, going into the year with 8 guys, you've got, to me, a locked-in 4 to start the year. But if Bischel pushes his way into the top 4, then you've got, some elite guys, not elite in the sense of top 10D in the league or anything, but you've got some really good NHLers fighting for a third line spot on D, which I think is something that'll be really good for Dallas. And then last but not least, you guys both hit on Ottinger. Overall, can you be mad at his game as a Dallas Star? No, he's had a lot of great upside. There have been a couple series and, consistency issues. I think one thing I'm excited for is that he is an RFA because, you see, I think Swayman was asking for like $10 million. Jake Ottinger can definitely earn a big contract like that by playing well this season. But it's on him. If Dallas wins the cup this year, I think Ottinger can kind of walk in and name his price and they'll sign him, for term and whatever he asks for. If they have a first round exit, it's going to be, hey, if we're going to keep you around, you're not making $10 million, and they've got some flexibility there. So I think, that is another thing that should bring out the best in Jake Ottinger. He should, bearing any sort of injuries or things like that are obviously, out of his control, I think he's going to want to have the best season of his career. And I think, if all those things align and, again, you've got to be healthy in this league to make the run at the end of the year. If they can, kind of coast through the regular season, as Alex mentioned, not in the sense of there won't be tough games or tough stretches, but just, never really in doubt of being in that 1 or 2 spot in the Central and then get into the playoffs healthy and all those things align as far as like Jake Ottinger, their decor, offensively, they're still buzzing. I think, they've got a really good opportunity to make a serious run. And as a Dallas Stars fan, obviously that's what I'm hoping for. So.
Absolutely. And there's a couple of points that Matt made. One was about Pavelski, and I didn't even bring him up, but obviously he retired in the offseason. Yeah, he had a great career. We wish him well in the future. Great run with Dallas, too. Some great playoff runs. Last year was not one of his better playoff runs. You know what it reminded me of? That car that you think it's a long drive. It's been a long drive, but you think you're going to be able to head home on that 1 tank of gas, and then you're like 5 minutes from home, and the car runs out of gas. It's on empty, and you just fail to get home by just that last few kilometers. That was Joe Pavelski last year. Just ran out of gas right before getting to that home stretch at the end of it all. So I think he made the right call. It's been a phenomenal career, an incredible career for Pavelski, in fact. And we wish him well in the future. And the other thing Matt mentioned that was a great point was the contract year for Ottinger. That stokes the fires of, hey, let me bring my best here and let me show you how much I think you should give me now moving forward, and let me dictate that with my level of play. And again, there's not much more Ottinger has to do. It's about winning a conference final and then winning a Stanley Cup. And you know what? There's a lot of pressure. I'll say this, though, about Dallas. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. Now getting to the Western Conference final ain't good enough. It just isn't, by the nature of what we've seen the last 2 years. It's got to be Stanley Cup final minimum, or else for better, you could say fair or unfair, right? But Stanley Cup final minimum, or this is a disappointment of a season. It just is. That is how high the expectations are with the Dallas Stars entering this season. Ryan, a season of expectations, how do you see it for Dallas?
Yeah, Matt pretty much talked on everything. So I thought that the points, the 103 was a little low. I like them to go over that just because I don't see a 10-point drop off. You guys touched on it, but their forward group pretty much top to bottom, I think, is considered one of the best in the league. It's not going to be like one of those, a team like Colorado that, especially without Nichushkin, they rely on McKinnon and Rantanen for, 70% of their offense, and Makar and stuff like that. Like top to bottom, they have a lot of guys that can produce and chip in. And so I think their forward group, if they can take another step, I think their motto last year was a little bit less for a lot more. And so you didn't see Jason Robertson have 108 points or whatever he had that one year. And Hintz was injured a little bit, but he didn't have great a year offensively, points wise, but I mean, they do so many things that you don't notice. So I think top to bottom, their forward group is set. I really like the additions they made on defense. I think if you can get Harley signed, and then it's Miro, Dumba, Harley, and Lindell as your top four, that puts you in a pretty good position. Let Bishop come in and hopefully develop and play some games, and hopefully he can turn into a top four and be the next Thomas Harley. So I think they're in a good position. And then obviously the goaltending too. I have a lot of faith in Ottinger, and like I agree with Alex that if he can have some games where he has 17, 18 shots and they get a win, maybe win 4-1 or whatever it is. And also with Casey DeSmith, with Wedgwood, I really liked Wedgwood. I'm a little sad that he's gone, but like you mentioned, Dean, those two are kind of interchangeable. So if he can give Ottinger some nights off and win a decent amount of his starts, that'll help as well. So I think from top to bottom, they have the team to do it, and every good team has to learn how to lose and go through the hard times first. And I think they've kind of done that and been through the frustrations of losing in the Cup final in 20, and then the last 2 years in the Western Conference final. So I mean, they have a lot of experience. You look at Tampa when they went on those runs, they got upset by Columbus in the first round or whatever it was. And, Chicago with Kane and Taves, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows before that. So I think the best teams go through that experience and learn how not to lose and how to win. And I mean, they're right there. Matt said Duchesne signed back for a reason. That guy is at the point in his career where, he doesn't care about money. He doesn't want to go to a team that's going to pay him the most money. He likes that group and he believes in them. And so veteran guys like that staying says a lot about it. So I think from top to bottom, they've on paper, obviously have one of the best teams, but it's about showing up. There's a lot of guys I'm looking to have a big year. I think Wyatt Johnson playing with Hintz and Robertson is going to help both those guys, but him as well. Hintz plays first power play, first line. He plays penalty kill sometimes. If he can stay healthy, I'm looking for a monster season out of him. But really just, especially with Maverick Bourque coming up now, you can move Wyatt to that first line to play with Hintz and Robertson. And then that third line, you still have Ben, Stankoven, and Bourque, who together tore it up in the AHL. And that Ben playing with those young kids has kind of reinvigorated him.
Ben with young kids because it revitalized him. It made him into a much more energized, infused Jamie Benn last year.
He just, I mean, he's looked like he's 25 again. It's the skating, is anticipation, the puck movement, the physicality, everything's there. I think those kids kind of give him a spark. So, it's nice. Maybe Maverick Bourque starts hot, and Ben and Wyatt are a little bit slow. You can kind of maybe interchange them and get Wyatt back with Ben and move Bourque up. So it gives them a lot of options, a lot of flexibility. Their forward group is deep. I think, like we said, top to bottom, they have all the pieces to do it. It's really just about taking that next step, and getting past the Western Conference Finals, which I fully believe they can do. And I'm excited to see how they start, and coming off, how last year finished, how the guys that were there last year kind of, if they have a fire lit under them and start off, get off to 8-2 start or 7-3 start, whatever it is. Because, starts aren't everything, but getting off to a good start certainly helps you later in the year after that Christmas break and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see how they start the first 10 to 15 games and kind of go from there. But I think there's a lot excited to be about. There's a lot to be excited about. And a lot of potential, not just for the team, but for, individuals, guys like Miro. I think at some point in his career, he's due to win a Norris, and it's just about putting a full 82-game season together. But I'm excited. There's a lot I'm on with Dallas, obviously, and I think this could be their year, hopefully. Just need to get through the Western Conference Finals.
Well said, Ryan. Good stuff. There's a lot of good points there as well. I'll say this, too, about Dallas. It's not like there's a lot of fucking alterations that have to be made, right? This is a conference finalist each of the last 2 years, and each of the 2 years they got bounced in the conference final. Who did they lose to? The eventual champions. Vegas 2 years ago, Edmonton. Not Edmonton, I should say. Florida won it, but the finalist. You know what I mean? They were that close. So there's not a lot that, not a lot of changes. There's just that one extra goal here, that one extra save there, that one extra penalty kill or power play goal there. That's what we're looking at for Dallas to be that, eventually get over that final hump and be a champion.
I forgot to say, I've seen a lot of people say like this is not only their division of the Central Division, but maybe even the Western Conference. This is their division to lose. I agree with Alex. Nashville improved a lot. I'm excited to see how they are as a team. But other than Nashville, maybe the Oilers are up there. Maybe Vancouver has a strong year again. But I think in the West, there's really 3, maybe 4 teams. So I think this is kind of their time to lose it. Like, they have all the potential in the world, all the opportunity. Like you said, they lost Pavelski, who has lost a step clearly, and maybe Radek Fox. Other than that, they pretty much, and Tanev is a big loss, but they've added up for it. They pretty much have 95% of the same team that was there with them in the Western Conference Final. So they have all the pieces. It's just getting over that mental hurdle. And it's pretty much it's right there for the taking.
I don't have a bet on this, but if I were to bet on this market of President's Trophy, the only thing I would be looking at would be Dallas at plus 900, because I don't like Colorado to win the division. I don't think Florida is going to bounce back in the win division. New Jersey and Toronto, don't see them really necessarily winning their respective divisions either. I think Edmonton's the favorite out of that, and they should be able to run away with the Pacific, but we saw what happened last year. That's not always set in stone. So if you're looking for somebody to bet for that President's Trophy, and I know obviously you don't want to hear that, considering it's not really something that leads to the Stanley Cup winning. But
don't put
that's
those thoughts in their heads.
It's the only thing I can. But from a future standpoint, it's the only thing I can look at. I think they should be the best team in the NHL during the regular season. Is the point of that?
Well, and Alex, I mentioned this on a different show. If you do, if your thoughts are that Dallas has a good chance to win the President's Trophy, Pete DeBoer to win the Jack Adams is plus 2,000. And I think if Dallas wins the President's Trophy, after 2 years in Western Conference Finals, since it's based on regular season, I feel like that's a really good bet. That won't be those odds if Dallas is, running the table mid-season. So something else to look at.
Perfect point. If you bet one, you bet both. So
yeah.
And if you think they're going to be, right where I think they had 113 points last year, and drop off is now they're at 103.5. If you think they're going to be up there, 110 plus regular season points for them is plus 170. So that's better than the minus 115 you can get at the on their regular points. So if you like the alternate line, if you think they're going to be right up there, same pace as last year with 50 wins and then a handful of overtime wins or losses, it's plus 170, which is a bit better value. So that's another good look. That's
FanDuel has plus 700 to go over 120 points. If you think they can get 60 wins, 58 to 60 wins, there's a 7-1 hanging there too. You look at 7-1, 9-1, and 20-1 right there. If you believe Dallas can just dominate throughout the entire regular season.
Yeah, a couple of awards props too, because look, we're talking about one of the top teams in the NHL, so certainly for award standpoints, there's going to be definitely. I know Wyatt Johnston, over the points, because you could get him to be even better. But there's a couple here that I'm interested in here as far as that is concerned. I don't even think it's crazy Wyatt at 40-1 with Rocket. Now I know that you got to deal with Austin Matthews and Pasternak and Draisaitl and McDavid and guys like that. But I'm telling you, he's just a gifted goal scorer already. Wyatt Johnston, that even at that price, I don't mind biting on that 40-1 with Wyatt as far as that goes. But the ones I'm really looking at here in the market, and look, Ryan mentioned it with Miro Heiskanen for the Norris. Okay, one thing to keep in mind here with this Norris Trophy, and I'm looking back at the history of this award when it's said and done, is that we have not had a repeat Norris Trophy winner in quite some time. Look, it was Hughes this year, Carlson before that, Makar before that, Fox, Yossi, Giordano, Hedman, Burns, Doughty, Carlson, going back the last.
Was Lidstrom the last multiple back-to-back winner?
That's a long time ago. 2006, 2007, 2007, 2008 seasons. Nicholas Lidstrom won the Norris Trophy back-to-back years. No one's repeated as Norris Trophy winner since then. And you can get Miro at 10-1. Sign me up. I think this could be the year for Miro Heiskanen. He finally gets his due. as one of the most complete defensemen. And I think what Matt said, that he might get his offensive game to even pick up a little bit this year, because there's going to be other guys to do the grunt work and the shutdown role and the physicality and the stay-at-home role. He'll be able to gallivant, a little bit more in the offensive zone this year, Miro Heiskanen. So his offensive numbers could be some of the better ones we've seen from him in recent years. And again, he's in great competition. It's a hell of a competitive category, right? Makar, Hughes, past Norris Trophy winners atop the board, plus 250, plus 700. Adam Fox has won at plus 700. Evan Bouchard is right there, plus 800. And then Miro at 10-1. And don't forget about Roman Josi and Victor Hedman, guys like that right there as well. But I think Miro at 10-1's value, and I think he's due to win one. Why not this year?
Yeah.
I see him on DraftKings.
I'm hoping they're. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I see him on DraftKings. Even I know every book is different. He's tied for the second favorite odds. It's Makar at plus 250, and then you got Hughes, Miro, Fox, and Bouchard all plus 800. I know that's on DraftKings. FanDuel has a little bit better odds, but I think it's like you mentioned. It's a great shot. It could be his year. Great time to take a shot on him. Matt touched on the offensive numbers when even if let's say he plays with Dumba and Dumba's offensive numbers jump up a little bit and he has a good year, it's going to make Miro look even better. I think the past 2 years with the Western Conference runs, people have started to realize how good he is and he's starting to get that respect. So I think plus 10-1 odds is, you can't pass it up as a Stars fan.
And the other one is Otter, 14-1 Vezina. That's the other one that piqued my interest.
Yeah, and I like that. Just again, from what I mentioned, that he is in a contract year. He's going to want to play his best year that he's had in his NHL career. So back to Miro for one more quick point is Dallas. You mentioned they were the third highest offensive team in the league last year. Goals for average. Their power play struggled and was very streaky at times. So if that gets rolling, Miro's out there sometimes for the full 2 minutes. They started to interchange him and Harley a little bit, but they typically run that 1D format. So a lot of times when they do score, he's chipping in on those second assists. So, if their power play really gets cooking, that could be a free, 15, 20, 25 points for him in addition to his, 5-on-5 play. And clearly he plays a lot of minutes, but I don't think anyone saw him in the playoffs and was like, they should have tightened up his minutes. He, looked fine throughout the whole Western Conference Finals. So I would expect that to kind of continue. And he's, another year older as well. He's still a young guy. I know a lot of those D you mentioned are, but yeah, he's not, getting older to where they're going to start looking at his minutes anytime soon. So if their power play gets cooking, I could see him, getting some additional points as well.
And just to touch on what you mentioned with Ottinger at 14-1 for the Vezina, that's pretty much another correlation that goes right in line with if you like this team to be the top of the West. So you're looking at putting that in the same portfolio, Joe, with the Jack Adams for DeBoer and the President's Trophy as well. So you can build a solid Dallas portfolio if you feel the way that we do about this team. Like I said, I don't really see where a lot of pushback comes from in the Central compared to some other teams in that division, and even the teams they play in the Pacific. They should be able to get the bulk of the wins night in and night out, even though like I said, it won't be an easy road, but that's fine. And like I said, some nights will be easier than others, and you don't want to have this team just completely cakewalk through and then all of a sudden have to play their most important hockey right at game one, night one of the Stanley Cup Finals. You want to have some resistance. Every team that has won Stanley Cup in the last 20 years, you've seen some resistance during the regular season, but I think it'll be a little bit easier for Dallas to do it than some other teams, at least as far as the first 82 games goes.
Yep, it's like
I do think you have to. Oh, I was just gonna say, considering their 2 Western Conference Finals run, that's another thing that you see out of these teams that are winning. Florida's, a lot of teams are getting late in those playoff runs for a couple of years before they get the win. Same thing happened with Colorado. So I think, if you combine that with some ups and downs, but if they have a little smoother than maybe some teams typically do, they do have that playoff experience, 17 or 18 of their full game roster guys. So that'll help as well.
You can't kick a door down unless you're in the right distance, and Dallas is right now in the right distance.
That's exactly it. As far as futures, I I'm only mentioning it now, but I'm sure it's not a surprise. Now, I do have Nashville to win the Central as well, but I do have Dallas. They are the favorite plus 190.
Yeah.
I did take Dallas, but I do have a piece of Nashville as well. I think those are the two teams that end. One of those two ends up winning the Central. And, of course, I've got Dallas. Once again, I'm in with them to win the West, win the Stanley Cup.
I have, like I said, as of right now, I have the over in points. And I will be adding that President's Trophy look and the, like I said, Jack Adams for DeBoer, Vesna, out for Vesna. So that'll be something I will have for smaller units. But, I think we still have some room with the cup, at least a little bit earlier. And like I said, now, of course, at some point, they're going to become gigantic cup favorites if everything comes to fruition. But I think there's still be a little bit of room early in the year. That might be the toughest time, I think, maybe for Dallas, where early in the year they might get caught by a couple of teams, and people are overvaluing Colorado, overvaluing Nashville heavy. If Nashville gets off to a hot run, and then there's some time where Dallas still could be a good team, but still could be undervalued, say late October. So that's what I'm kind of holding out for as far as jumping in officially on West and Cup futures.
There you go. I like a lot of those and thought process too. Maybe a slow start, then you jump in on Dallas to win the West and the Stanley Cup, as opposed to maybe betting them now. But great stuff. Final thoughts from anybody before we wrap this up. Ryan, Matt, anything last things you want to add?
No, nothing really from my end. I feel like you guys did a great job getting in depth, and then obviously Ryan and I just kind of came in with our opinions on from the full time watching the Stars, seeing updates and training camps and things like that. So, nothing really else to add from my end. I don't know if Ryan's got anything to add.
Yeah, there's a couple alternate lines and stuff. Like I'll be on Hintz points, I'll be on Wyatt Johnson points, and I was looking around at Robertson. I know I think he had 35 last year, 36, whatever it was. If you think that he starts shooting the puck more, and especially playing with Wyatt Johnson, maybe getting the puck more, and kind of takes off in the goal department, him to get 40 plus, I see him at plus 300, which I kind of like. If he has a really big year and gets back to that, the form he was in when he hit 108 points, whatever it was, might be worth taking a shot at that. Just because he's going to get that added offense and that youth with Wyatt Johnson. And you saw flashes when those three were together last year of, the potential they have. So I'll be on Hintz. I'll be on, Robo and Wyatt Johnson. And then as well, the Miro Norris, I'm definitely opting in on that just because it's too good of a price to pass up. This could definitely be his year. So other than that, I'm excited to see how they start. Excited to see how the first 20 games go, if they start off slow or if they, get off to a great start. So I'm excited. I think it's 31 days until they open up in Nashville. So that'll be a great first game to kind of test out where they're at and go from there.
And I'll make one more point, too, about the schedule with Dallas. Now, Dallas, they have 2 games against Florida that will take place right at the beginning of November in Finland. And then you keep in mind, they only have one true road trip that's 5 games or longer, and that happens in January. They go to New York, Philly, Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa. They have a 6-game road trip that would be split amongst the 4 nations break. So 3 games, then the break, and then they start with 3 games on the road. So they have a fantastic edge as far as the scheduling is concerned. No gigantic long road trips. Everything's kind of balanced and kind of flattened out from a schedule perspective. So that's something good to see, too, when we're talking about these long-term futures.
Which is the counterpoint to this nonsense floating around social media that they're traveling the most miles in the NHL this year, the Dallas Stars. But they're going to Finland, man. What do you expect? I mean, that definitely enhances it a little bit.
Yeah, and you got to remember the Stars are basically Team Finland, just with their Jiri Lehtinen connection. So not that it's, obviously there's fans in Finland that are going to be excited to see Florida, the reigning NHL Cup champions. So I don't think it's going to be a home game or anything like that. But that, Dallas has some heavy Finland influence on their team. They've got some Finnish history on their team. So I do expect those to be fun games for the Stars. And I'm sure guys like Miro are really excited about returning home to play some NHL games.
No doubt. Well, don't forget they've got 2 pins still. Florida, Anton Lundell, and my buddy with a great name, E2 Cool Mint Lusterinen, is on that team. So don't forget about that.
Isn't Barkov
Of
Finnish?
course, Barkov. I can't
Barkov,
believe I
yep.
forgot that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good. That the NHL was using their noodle on that one, sending Dallas and Florida. Finland. That's a good game for the folks there in Finland.
We have
Nicholas Nepalainen, who we'll be seeing on the show, of course.
Since we have to send games overseas during the regular season, I guess you might as well send teams that would line up with the country. So.
No doubt. I'm looking forward to that. Great stuff. And we're looking forward to some Dallas Stars hockey. Boom, boom, Dallas, boom, Stars, and boom, Dallas, Stars. Got to get one of those in here on the Dallas Stars preview. Awesome job from the brothers Robinson, Matt and Ryan, and of course, Alex P. Smith, as always. I'm Ian Cameron. This has been your Dallas Stars team preview video right here on the Ice Guys. 32 teams in 32 days as we get you ready for the upcoming NHL season.